Welcome back to IGN Live at Gamescom 2015, presented by Homefront: The Revolution. I'm Max Scova. With me is Hayden Blackman from Hangar 13.
Hey.
You guys just showed off Mafia 3. You just let that out of the bag and unloose just like last week?
Yeah, that's right. Just a couple days ago.
Yeah. So what's the pitch? Elevator pitch.
So Mafia 3 is the hard-boiled story of a guy named Lincoln Clay who wages war against the Italian mob in 1968 in our fictionalized version of New Orleans.
Now, there's kind of a shift going on here. People are kind of used to Mafia being this kind of like, Godfather, Goodfellas kind of vibe.
Right.
And Lincoln's background's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, with Mafia 3, we really wanted to stay true to the things that we felt were important to the franchise. So a very immersive sense of time and place and stories that are really compelling, and obviously compelling stories about organized crime, which for me is a personally fascinating subject. But we also wanted to kind of go beyond that rags to riches story of an Italian mobster kind of working his way up the ranks, because we've already done that in the franchise.
Right.
So we focused on this new protagonist, on Lincoln Clay, who is an orphan. He's been searching for a sense of family his entire life. He's a Vietnam vet. He comes back at the beginning of the game from Vietnam and falls in with the black mob and eventually finds that kind of sense of family there. But then it all gets taken away by the Italian mob, and he has to kind of rebuild and wage war against the Italian mob in the process.
And you've got this awesome backdrop of post-Vietnam War. You've got the civil rights movement, and it's the most corrupt city in America. So we've got some gameplay clips if we want to take a look at those. This is, I'm actually, full disclosure, I haven't played the previous Mafia games, and I feel sort of justified in that because the first one came out in 2002.
Right, yeah.
So it's been a minute,
Yeah.
This is, for people who also haven't been onto it, this is a fresh start, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're a fan of the franchise, there's going to be some ties back or some touchstones back. We're still set in the same universe. So Vito Scaletta, who was the main character in Mafia 2, comes back and plays a really integral role as kind of one of your lieutenants that you can recruit throughout the course of the game. But again, we've moved forward in time. The tone is very different. It's much more hard-boiled. Again, the city's very different. It's New Orleans. It's an iconic southern city, and it's 1968. And as you mentioned, it's this backdrop of racial tension and Vietnam and some major assassinations, and there's just a lot going on in the time period that makes it really robust. So.
And now mechanically, it's open world game.
It is
story driven.
Yeah, so we kind of have three tenets there. So one, yes, it is narrative driven. There is a strong narrative, but the narrative really serves as like tent poles. And in between that, we allow the player to kind of go out and attack the mob and tear down the criminal hierarchy however they want, and then kind of rebuild it. So they go out and they can explore that criminal ecosystem in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
But then we're very much a cover shooter as well. So kind of the core combat is cover shooting. And then we have a really robust physics-based driving model that allows you to use the car as a weapon and really captures the feeling of late 60s action movies like Bullet.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's take a look at this.
Sure.
We can cue up some clips. So cover shooter. What's going? This is sort of quick time event-ish, but
no, that's actually that's a melee attack in the game. So Lincoln really, because of his training, because of who he is, he's able to kind of own the battlefield. That's another mantra that we have. So again, the core mechanic is cover-based shooter, but we also have stealth mechanics in the game, and there's moments like that where you can kind of use melee as either a way to ambush somebody or as a panic button. If you come around the corner or you're out of ammo, you can use your melee in order to kind of get the drop on somebody. And it is, again, we are not shying away from kind of this brutal combat that we feel really captures the time period as well.
Okay, and how much kind of exploration, sort of like lateral?
There's a ton. And again, in the demo that we've been showing here at Gamescom, Lincoln takes out a drug den called the Cistern. But that is not a mission in the game. That's an objective that the player can kind of set for themselves as they discover that these hideouts exist, right? So you go into the world, you can interrogate drug dealers to find out where the location of this place is. There's multiple different entrances to it, and then eventually you can, take it over and operate it on your own.
All right, I want to see more of this. Keep them rolling, keep them coming. This is the driving. It looks very. I'm going to be honest. It looks very kind of cartoony. Like it's very I like that you're tagging Bullet because that's a great example. It seems like what's going on. You've got like a drift meter. This is kind of like really, really pretty crazy taxi looking right now.
Well, that's one of our interrogation mechanics. So there's lots of different ways to interrogate guys in the game, and every time you interrogate somebody, you learn another piece of information about the criminal ecosystem in the world. So one way is to do kind of brutal, physical, in-your-face interrogations. Another way is that what we call drive like a madman mechanic, right?
Okay.
So, and basically you're causing this guy to lose his cool and eventually spill all the information that he has.
You got a sweet jump here.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
So, and then you have a choice to kind of kill and spare this guy. In some of the other clips I know that we have, you see a lot of car combat, and that really we wanted the car to become a weapon to make you feel like you could. One of my favorite moves is this car torpedo, where you kind of send it at some enemies and you go diving out, and then the car will take out the enemies and sometimes explode.
Now, one thing I'm noticing in this, you've got these kind of like these indicators above enemies' heads, like little lightning bolts. What does that symbolize?
So right now, what that's symbolizing is that they're aware of you and that they're
and that ties in with
becoming
the stealth
nervous.
stuff, I'm guessing,
and
kind of.
It's not just stealth, but it's also if you're out of place. So one of the things that is really important to us is this idea of public-facing hideouts or hideouts with public fronts. So again, in the demo that we're showing here at Gamescom, we have a drug den that's hidden underneath a jazz club. If Lincoln goes in there and he's waving his gun around, or even just looks out of place, the patrons in there might get nervous and call the cops or alert the mobsters. If the mobsters spot him wandering around, they're going to get suspicious, right? Because they know they're at war with this guy, and he stands out a little bit, right? So that's really just kind of their alert.
This is kind of sort of suspicious behavior right there,
right? Yeah, you're walking up against a guard, the guard standing there at the back door, and as soon as he spots Lincoln, he knows that this is something shady going on, and he needs to kind of step forward and try and scare Lincoln off, and obviously that didn't work.
Okay, so you're obviously New Orleans is a kind of brand new city. Open world games have definitely come a long way since the last Mafia entry. Are we going to see kind of a broader exploration? How big is the city? How kind of, I feel like Mafia does have sort of a linear story approach, but
and again that we're not shying away from that. We still have that very strong narrative, but within the context of that, these kind of tentpole moments, the player can create their own experience, kind of their own story. In terms of kind of the city, the thing that we really focused on was density of activity, like how much cool content can we put in kind of every square block, and you saw some of that in that walk down Bourbon Street earlier, and that's why we have this criminal ecosystem, and so you can go out and you can explore back alleys and find criminal rackets going on. But then
there's the torpedo movement.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
The torpedo thing. Yeah. But then we also focused on things like the environments, right? So again, because it's New Orleans, we have everything from Bourbon Street to swamps, the bayou. We've got this kind of rich upper class enclave. We've got some kind of poorer neighborhoods. So it feels, in my mind, incredibly diverse and rich.
Now we saw the big reveal trailer. It has a very terrifying alligator in it.
Right.
I would be really upset if there weren't alligators in the game. Is there other kind of flora and fauna we can?
Yeah, I can't confirm any details there yet. We're not releasing any information there, but I can tell you, obviously the bayou is an important part of the ecosystem for us. So, yeah.
So this seems like, it's a massive game, and it's kind of hard to pull out a vertical slice like this and be like, here's what we're looking at.
Right.
But I'm guessing this is going to be a kind of a robust experience for everyone to kind of play around with.
Yeah, that's what we hope. Again, I think the combination of having this very curated story and this character in Lincoln who goes through this kind of journey, but then also the ability to kind of customize your experience with your lieutenants and how you approach tearing down and rebuilding this criminal empire, I think will give every player, kind of their own unique experience.
Gotcha. Now, one thing I've noticed in the trailer at the end, we kind of get a look at the lieutenants, and they seem like kind of a ragtag bunch. They don't look like they're in the same gang. They look kind of like
Absolutely, that's totally true. So, Lincoln, one of the things I think is really important about the Mafia franchise is it's really about gifted anti-heroes. And Lincoln's got a couple different gifts, right? So one of his gifts is again, his training as a Vietnam vet. That he actually enlisted, and he spent 3 years, and he was in some special forces groups in Vietnam. So that's one of the things that kind of gives him an edge. But the other is partly because of his background and kind of growing up in an orphanage and spending all this time seeking for family. He has this ability to bring together these disparate groups of people. So these 3 lieutenants, one of them's an Irish gangster, another is a Haitian crime lord, and the third is actually Vito, the Italian gangster from Mafia II. But all 3 of them feel kind of put upon by the reigning mob boss of the city, and it's kind of that enemy is my friend thing.
Gotcha.
So Lincoln's able to kind of recruit them with the promise of, hey, I'm in charge, but I'll share the city with you if you all agree to work with me.
Gotcha.
And that's actually an important part of the game. Balancing this relationship between these three characters is actually really important, and the player can decide to, as he kind of takes over the city, can decide who he doles out different hideouts and different districts to.
Now, would it be safe to assume that they each have their kind of own sort of like separate missions, or they have kind of like little side stories? Or?
They do have side stories, and they have various activities that they can kind of unlock for you and open up to you. The other thing that they really provide, which is to me one of the interesting features of the game, is what we call services. So these are kind of favors that you can call in from these guys. So they get more powerful as you give them more territory over time. So Burke, for example, has an in with the police. So you can actually bribe cops to leave you alone for a period of time, or call off cops if you're in trouble. It's 1968, so at least at the beginning of the game you have to use a payphone to do that type of stuff. But it's really great because you'll spot it. You'll be running from cops and you'll spot a payphone and you can kind of leap out and call Burke, and then he'll call off the cops for you.
All right.
But again, those things become more powerful over time as long as you're giving territory to your lieutenant. So you're kind of balancing how powerful do I want to get versus how happy do I want to keep all three of them.
Okay. Are there more lieutenants besides just these?
No, we're focused on those three. We really wanted to build, again, a really strong core cast of characters. There's a couple other really important characters in the game that we're not, divulging any information about at this point, but some characters that kind of help comment on the way that Lincoln is progressing through the story and provide a lot of context for what's going on and help him on his mission in different ways.
Okay. Now you mentioned payphones, and that kind of made me think it seems very grounded.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got water. Are there going to be boats in the game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So one of the things we are showing at Gamescom here too is as you go into this drugged in the cistern, each of our hideouts supports multiple entrances, and one of the entrances you can discover through either exploration or interrogations is the ability to come in by boat.
Nice.
It is our fictionalized version of New Orleans, so we're taking a lot of creative license. And in this case, we have a whole series of tunnels underneath the city that used to be used by bootleggers and whatnot.
Now, what about, are there planes, are there aerial vehicles?
No, we're very focused, because our driving model is so solid, we're focused on cars first and foremost, and then boats.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah.
When are we going to see this?
2016.
2016?
Yeah,
Do you have like a ballpark, which end of the year?
Not yet. We're not revealing any of that information yet.
Okay. Well, it looks awesome, and I'm I'm dying to see more.
All right.
So thanks so much for joining us. We've got lots more Gamescom stuff coming up, so don't go anywhere.